The massive chamber stretched high above Taemin's head like a cathedral built for giants. He sat in the smallest chair at the very edge of the circular table, his feet barely touching the polished floor. Round him, alien beings the size of buildings discussed the fate of his home world with the casual tone of people ordering lunch. Tae-Min had turned 19 just 3 weeks ago. His birthday cake had been a small celebration in the cramped quarters of the human delegation ship. Now he found himself in the most important meeting in human history, and nobody seemed to notice he was there. The Galactic Defense Council chamber was designed to accommodate dozens of different alien species. The ceiling rose so high that clouds might have formed up there. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that changed colors based on the emotions of the beings inside. Right now, the walls pulsed with deep reds and angry oranges. Admiral Hyunwoo sat 3 seats away from Taemin, his weathered face showing the strain of the past few days. He was the only other human in the chamber, and at 55 years old, he looked ancient compared to his young assistant. The Admiral kept glancing at Taemin with worried eyes, as if he wanted to apologize for bringing him to this place. But Taemin was not afraid. He was curious. The being speaking now was Queen Zestra of the Valkyrie Empire. She stood 8 feet tall on 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp points. Her body was covered in black armor that looked like it had grown from her skin rather than been made in a factory. HFY, 2 massive wings folded against her back, each one the size of a human door. Her head was the most disturbing part. It was shaped like a triangle, with compound eyes that contained thousands of tiny lenses. When she looked at something, it seemed like she was seeing it from every possible angle at once. The human species has exactly 3 standard days, too. "Surrender," Queen Zestra announced. Her voice came through a translator device that made her words sound like breaking glass. "If Earth does not submit to Valkyrie rule by then, we will reduce your planet to dust." The other alien delegates around the table nodded their various heads in agreement. The Nexari representative was a living crystal formation that chimed like bells when it moved. Sound it made now was clearly approval. The Vorthok delegation looked like colored smoke trapped in environmental suits. They swirled faster when they were excited, and right now they were spinning like tiny tornadoes. "The Valkyrie have conquered 47 worlds," continued a delegate from the Thraxian Republic. This alien looked almost human except for the fact that his skin was bright blue, and he had 4 arms. "Every species that has tried to fight them has been destroyed. Every species that surrendered has been allowed to continue existing under Valkyrie rule. It is simple mathematics," added the Nexari representative, its crystalline body ringing like a wind chime. "Resistance equals extinction. Submission equals survival." Taemin listened to all of this while his fingers moved across his tablet. The device was connected to the human military database, and he was pulling up files faster than most people could read them. Ship specifications, battle reports, population statistics, technological assessments, all of it painted the same picture. Humanity was doomed. The humans had been spacefaring for less than 200 years. Most of the species in this chamber had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The human fleet consisted of 37 combat vessels. The Valkyrie Armada had over 3,000 bioships, each one capable of healing itself and adapting to enemy attacks. Admiral Hyunwoo, Queen Zestra's terrible voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "Does your species have anything to say before we conclude this meeting?" The Admiral stood up slowly. He was a good man who had spent his entire career trying to keep humanity safe. But even he knew that some fights could not be won. "Your Majesty, we would like to request additional time to consider your terms," he said carefully. "Additional time?" Queen Zestra's wings rustled with what might have been amusement. "Admiral, my fleet is already in position around your world. My bioships are hungry. They have not fed in many cycles. If you delay much longer, I may not be able to control them." The threat was clear. The Valkyrie bioships were living creatures that consumed metal and energy. They would eat human ships, space stations, and eventually the cities on Earth itself. However, Queen Zestra continued, "I am feeling generous today. I will allow all council members to speak before I make my final decision." Her compound eyes swept around the chamber, touching each delegate in turn. When her gaze reached Timon, it stopped. Even the child, she added. And the sound that came from her translator might have been laughter. The other aliens in the chamber turned to look at Timon for the first time. Some of them had probably forgotten he was there. The Thraxian delegate made a gesture with all four arms that clearly meant how amusing. The Vorthok delegation swirled in patterns that suggested they found the situation entertaining. Tay-Min had been called many things in his short life. Genius, prodigy, the youngest person ever accepted into the military academy. The first human to score perfect marks on the Galactic Intelligence Assessment. But right now, surrounded by beings that could crush him without effort, he was just a child. "Let the boy speak," Queen Zestra said, settling back into her chair. The furniture groaned under her weight. "Let us hear what the youngest human has to say about the fate of his species." Admiral Hanwu shot Tommen a warning look. The message was clear: say nothing that might make things worse. But Timon was already standing up. His tablet was still in his hands, and the screen showed data that none of the other beings in the chamber could see. Charts and graphs and numbers. That told a story very different from the one everyone believed.
"Your Majesty,"
Timon said, his young voice surprisingly steady in the vast chamber. "I have prepared a brief analysis of the current tactical situation." Queen Zestra's wings spread slightly, a sign of interest in her species. "An analysis?" she repeated. "How fascinating. Please proceed. I mean." Walked to the center of the chamber where the main holographic display waited. His hands were steady as he connected his tablet to the system. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy watched with the kind of attention adults give to children performing in school plays. They thought they were about to hear the frightened words of a boy who did not understand how hopeless his situation was. They were wrong. "I believe," Timon said as the first slide appeared above the table, "that there are some factors in this conflict that have not been properly considered." The slide showed human military strength compared to the Valkyrie fleet. The numbers were exactly what everyone expected. Humanity looked pathetic. "As you can see," Timon continued, "humanity appears to be completely outmatched." Queen Zestra's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. This was going exactly as she had expected, but Timon was not finished. "However," he said, his finger hovering over the control that would bring up the next slide, "I think there might be something important that everyone in this chamber has overlooked." His dark eyes met Queen Zestra's compound gaze directly, something that might change everything. The holographic display above the council table flickered to life, casting blue light across the faces of the alien delegates. Timon stood beneath it, looking impossibly small in the vast chamber. His tablet was connected to the main system. Now, and every being in the room could see what he was showing them. The first slide was brutal in its honesty. "The human military consists of 37 combat vessels," Timon said, his voice carrying clearly through the translator systems. "Our largest ship is the battlecruiser Sol, which measures 400 meters in length. Our total fleet tonnage is approximately 2 million metric tons." The numbers appeared in the air above him, glowing softly. They looked pathetic compared to what everyone knew about the Valkyrie Armada. "Our weapons technology is based on kinetic projectiles, plasma beams, and nuclear warheads," Timon continued. "We have no energy shields, no faster-than-light weapons, and no biological warfare capabilities." Queen Zestra's compound eyes reflected the holographic display. Her mandibles clicked in what her species used as laughter. Several of the other delegates made sounds of amusement. The Thraxian representative gestured with all four arms in a way that clearly meant how pitiful. "Our military personnel number. Approximately 50,000 across all branches," Timon said. "This includes ground forces, naval crews, and support staff. We have been a spacefaring species for less than 2 centuries. Admiral Hyanwu shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He had hoped that Timon would find some way to make humanity sound stronger than they actually were. Instead, the young man was laying out their weaknesses for everyone to see. "Our industrial capacity is limited to our home system," Timon continued. "We have mining operations on 6 worlds and manufacturing facilities on 4. Our total population is approximately 12 billion beings. The slide changed, showing a comparison chart. On one side was humanity's military strength. On the other side was a question mark labeled Velkhari Empire. I do not have complete data on Velkhari military capabilities, Taman admitted. However, intelligence reports suggest that your forces are significantly superior to ours in every measurable category. Queen Zestra preened at this acknowledgement. Her wings rustled with pleasure, and she settled back in her chair like a cat that had just been complimented. The boy shows wisdom, she announced to the chamber. At least he understands the reality of his situation. Taman was not finished with his first slide. However, he said, and something in his tone made several delegates lean forward, these numbers only tell part of the story. He touched his tablet, and the display zoomed in on human military statistics. But now there were additional details that had not been there before. Human military doctrine is based on flexibility and adaptation, Taman explained. Our ships are designed to be modified quickly for different missions. Our personnel are trained to handle multiple roles. Our industrial capacity, while limited, is extremely efficient. The Nexar representative chimed softly, a sound that indicated confusion. The crystal being had not expected this level of detail from a human child. For example, Taman said, manipulating the display to show technical specifications. Our battlecruiser's Soul was originally designed as a cargo vessel. It was converted to military use in less than 6 months. This represents a level of adaptability that is uncommon among spacefaring species. Admiral Hyanwu began to understand what his young assistant was doing. Taman was not just presenting human weaknesses. He was showing human strengths that might not be immediately obvious. Additionally, Taman continued, human military training emphasizes independent thinking and creative problem solving. Our officers are expected to make decisions without consulting higher authority. This allows for a rapid response to changing tactical situations. The second slide appeared, and this one made the entire chamber fall silent. It showed the Velkhari fleet in perfect detail. Ship classifications, weapon systems, formation patterns, even estimated crew numbers. The information was so complete that Queen Zestra's wings snapped upright in surprise. "How did you obtain this data?" she demanded, her translator making her voice sound like grinding metal. "Public sources, Your Majesty," Taman replied calmly. "Battle reports from the 47 worlds you have conquered, sensor readings from trade vessels that encountered your fleet, communication intercepts from species that survived your attacks." He gestured to the display, which now showed a three-dimensional representation of a Velkhari bioship. The creature was beautiful in a terrible way, like a massive jellyfish made of living metal. "Your bioships are grown rather than built," Taman explained. "Each one is approximately 800 meters in length and has a mass of roughly 6 million metric tons. They are powered by biological processes that convert matter directly into energy." The alien delegates watched in fascination as the display showed the internal structure of a Velkhari vessel. Organs instead of engines, nervous systems instead of computer networks, weapons that were actually living creatures attached to the ship's hull. "Your fleet consists of approximately 3,000 bioships," Taman continued. "They are capable of self-repair, adaptation to new threats, and independent decision-making. They do not require external fuel or supplies as they can consume raw materials from asteroids, debris, or defeated enemy vessels." Queen Zestra's posture had changed. She was no longer lounging in her chair like a satisfied predator. Instead, she sat upright, her compound eyes fixed on the human boy with intense focus. "Most importantly," Taman said, "your bioships are connected to each other through a form of biological communication. When one ship learns something new, all ships in the fleet immediately share that knowledge. This makes your armada incredibly difficult to defeat using conventional tactics." The display showed battle after battle, world after world falling to the Velkhari advance. The pattern was always the same. The defending species would try some new weapon or strategy, and it would work for a short time. Then the bioships would adapt, and the defense would crumble. The Keltharian Federation tried to use stealth technology, Taman narrated as the display showed their defeat. "It worked for exactly 17 minutes before your bioships developed new sensors. The Mordian Republic attempted to use quantum disruptors, he continued. Your ships adapted biological shielding within 2 hours. The Zephyrian Commonwealth tried to overwhelm your fleet with numerical superiority, Taman said. Your bioships simply grew larger and more powerful in response. The third slide appeared, and this one showed the most depressing data of all. A galactic map with red dots marking every world that had fallen to the Velkari. There were dozens of them, scattered across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. 47 species have faced your armada, Taman said quietly. 47 different approaches to warfare. 47 different technologies. 47 different strategies. The map zoomed in on each conquered world, showing brief details about the species that had once lived there. Some had been enslaved, others had been completely destroyed. All had been forced to choose between submission and extinction. Is why every species represented in this chamber chose to surrender rather than fight, Taman continued. Mathematically, resistance appeared to be impossible. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Being reminded of their defeats was not pleasant, even when it was done by a human child. The Velkari adaptation rate is unprecedented, Taman said. Your bioships learn faster than any known military system. Your queen is one of the most successful military commanders in galactic history. Your empire has expanded continuously. For over 1,000 years, Queen Zestra's wings spread slightly, a sign of pride in her species. Any conventional military force attempting to fight your armada would be doomed to failure, Taman concluded. This is simply a fact. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of the life support systems seemed to quiet down. Admiral Hyanwu stared at his young assistant with growing confusion. If Taman was trying to convince the aliens not to attack Earth, he was doing a terrible job of it, but Taman was not finished. However, he said, his finger hovering over the control that would bring up the 4th slide. I believe there is one thing that your majesty may not have considered. Queen Zestra leaned forward in her chair. And what is that, child? Taman's. Dark eyes met her compound gaze directly. You've never faced a species quite like humanity before. Taman's finger touched the control on his tablet, and the 4th slide materialized above the council table. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The Nexari representative stopped chiming entirely, its crystalline body going completely still. The Vorthok delegation ceased their swirling motion for the first time since the meeting began. Even Queen Zestra's wings folded back against her body in what could only be described as surprise. The slide showed something none of them had expected to see. It was a detailed map of the human brain, but not just any brain. This was a 3-dimensional representation of neural activity during extreme stress situations. This is how a human mind works when facing impossible odds, Taman explained, his voice calm and steady. The image shows brain activity during what we call a crisis response. Display rotated slowly, showing the brain from every angle. Certain areas pulsed with bright colors, indicating high levels of activity. Other areas that were normally active had gone almost completely dark. When humans face a threat that cannot be defeated through normal means, Taman continued, our brains literally rewire themselves. Areas responsible for following rules and accepting limitations shut down. Areas responsible for creative thinking and problem-solving become hyperactive. Admiral Hyanwu leaned forward in his chair, his eyes wide with realization. He had seen this response in human soldiers during the worst battles of his career. Men and women who had found impossible solutions to hopeless situations. Call this state thinking outside the box, Taman said. It is a survival mechanism that evolved over millions of years of facing predators, natural disasters, and other threats that should have destroyed our species. The slide changed to show comparative brain scans from different species. The Nexari. Thought in perfect crystalline patterns, each thought connecting to the next in logical sequences. The Vorthok processed information in flowing streams of probability. The Thraxians used all 4 lobes of their brains simultaneously, creating incredibly complex but predictable thought patterns. Every species in this chamber thinks in patterns, Taman explained. Your thoughts follow logical pathways. Your strategies are based on what has worked before. Your military doctrines are refined versions of ancient techniques. Queen Zestra's compound eyes followed the display as it showed brain activity from her own species. Velkhari thought processes were shown as interconnected networks. Each individual mind linked to the collective consciousness of the hive. The Valkyrie hive mind is perhaps the most efficient thinking system in the galaxy, Taman acknowledged. Your collective intelligence allows for perfect coordination and rapid adaptation. This is why you have been so successful in your conquests. The queen's mandibles clicked with satisfaction, but her posture remained tense. Something about the human boy's presentation was making her uncomfortable. However, Taman continued, there is one thing that all of these thinking patterns have. In common, they are predictable. The display showed battle simulations from the 47 worlds that had fallen to the Valkyrie. In each case, the defending species had used logical, predictable strategies. They had built better weapons, formed larger fleets, or developed new technologies. All of these responses followed patterns that the Valkyrie bioships could analyze and adapt to. The Keltharian Federation used stealth because they were naturally good at hiding, Taman explained. The Mordian Republic used quantum weapons because they were masters of quantum physics. The Zephyrian Commonwealth used numerical superiority because they had the largest population. Examples played out above the table like a history lesson. Each species had fought according to their strengths, and each had been defeated when the Valkyrie adapted to those strengths. But humans, Taman said, and his voice carried a new tone of confidence. Humans do not always fight according to their strengths. When we are desperate enough, we fight according to what will work. The slide changed again, showing historical battles from Earth's past. Ancient armies defeating forces 10 times their size through tactics no one had ever seen before. Small groups of soldiers holding off entire invasions by using the environment in ways their enemies had never imagined. During our Second World War, Taman said, human force of 300 men held off an army of 30,000 for 3 days. They did not win through superior weapons or numbers. They won by convincing their enemies that they were facing a much larger force. The display showed the battle in detail. The human soldiers had used mirrors to reflect sunlight, creating the illusion of thousands of rifle barrels. They had recorded the sounds of large formations moving and played them back through speakers placed throughout the forests. They had even used mannequins dressed as soldiers to make their numbers appear larger. The enemy had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, Taman continued. But they had never faced an opponent willing to fight a war of pure deception. Zestra's wings rustled with what might have been unease. The Valkyrie had evolved as hunters, and hunters relied on being able to predict their prey's behavior. Another example, Taman said, and the display changed again. During our third global conflict, a human naval force defeated an enemy fleet by convincing them that the ocean itself was their weapon. The new battle simulation showed human ships releasing massive quantities of a harmless substance into the water. The enemy fleet, seeing what appeared to be a biological weapon, had retreated in panic. The humans had won a major naval battle. Without firing a single shot, substance was nothing more than colored dye, Taman explained. But the enemy fleet had no way to analyze it quickly enough to realize it was harmless. They retreated because they could not predict what the humans were trying to do. The alien delegates were beginning to understand what the young human was showing them. Species that thought in predictable patterns could be defeated by opponents who were willing to abandon all patterns. Humans have a saying, Taman continued. If you cannot win the game, change the rules. The display showed more examples from human history. A small group of rebels defeating a galactic empire by targeting a single weakness in their ultimate weapon. A human commander winning a space battle by ramming his ship into the enemy flagship, an action so unexpected that the enemy fleet panicked and fled. This is why humans have never lost a war when our survival was truly at stake, Taman said. We do not fight the war our enemies expect us to fight. We fight the war that wins. The chamber had grown very quiet. Even the background hum of the life support systems seemed subdued. Queen Zestra stood up slowly, her full height making her tower over the human boy. Her compound eyes reflected the holographic display, showing dozens of tiny images of human victories against impossible odds. "You are suggesting," she said carefully, "that humans think differently than other species." "I am suggesting," Taman replied, "that humans think differently than other species when they need to survive." The Queen's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress in her species. Around the table, the other alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. They had all faced the Velkari Armada and chosen submission because it was the logical choice. But humans, apparently, did not always make logical choices. "Your Majesty," Taman said, his voice respectful but firm. "Your bioships are designed to adapt to predictable threats. Your hive mind is perfectly suited to analyzing and countering conventional strategies. Your empire has conquered 47 worlds because those worlds fought wars that made sense." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But Earth is not going to fight a war that makes sense." Queen Zestra's wings spread to their full extent, a clear threat display. But there was something different about her posture now. For the first time in her long career of conquest, she was facing an opponent she could not predict. "What exactly are you proposing, human child?" she demanded. Tay-Min smiled, and for the first time since the meeting began, he looked like the 19-year-old boy he actually was. "I am proposing that we show you something your species has never seen before." His finger moved toward the control that would bring up the 5th slide. "I am proposing that we show you what happens when humans fight for their survival." The 5th slide appeared above the council table, and several alien delegates gasped in shock. What they saw was impossible, yet the data was streaming in real time from their own sensors. The display showed the space around Earth, where the massive Velkari Armada hung in perfect formation. 3,000 bioships floated in the darkness like sleeping giants, each one capable of destroying a city. But something was wrong with the image. The bioships were glowing. "Oh, Your Majesty," Taman said calmly, "while we have been talking, my analysis has been running in the background. Your bioships have a weakness that no one has ever exploited before." Queen Zestra's compound eyes fixed on the display, her wings trembling with sudden anxiety. The bioships in the image were pulsing with unnatural colors, their organic holes shifting between green and blue and purple. "Impossible," she hissed, her translator making her voice sound like breaking glass. "Our bioships are perfect. They have conquered 47 worlds. They cannot be defeated." "Your Majesty is correct," Taman replied. "Your bioships are perfect for fighting conventional wars. But humans do not fight conventional wars." The display zoomed in on one of the glowing bioships. Its hull was covered in what looked like tiny lights, thousands of them spreading across the surface like stars coming to life. "3 days ago, when you first arrived in our system, we began studying your ships," Taman explained. "Not their weapons or their armor or their speed. Studied their biology." Admiral Hyanwu leaned forward, his face showing amazement and pride. He was beginning to understand what his young assistant had accomplished. "Every species you have conquered tried to fight your ships as if they were machines," Taman continued. "They built bigger guns, stronger shields, faster engines. But humans understand something that other species do not." The display showed a cross-section of a Velkari bioship. Inside, organs pulsed with life, nervous systems carried information. At the speed of thought, and biological processors made decisions faster than any computer. "Your ships are not machines," Taman said. "They are living creatures, and humans have been dealing with living creatures for our entire history." The slide changed to show Earth's past. Images of human doctors fighting diseases, human farmers controlling pests, human scientists studying the behavior of animals. "On Earth, when we face a biological threat, we do not try to destroy it with force," Taman explained. "We try to understand it. We study its weaknesses, find ways to make it behave the way we want it to behave." Queen Zestra stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her wings spread to their full extent, and her mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. "What have you done to our ships?" she demanded. "We have not harmed them," Taman replied. "We have simply introduced them to some new friends." The display showed a close-up view of the tiny lights covering the bioship's hull. They were not lights at all. They were microscopic machines, so small that they could slip through the bioship's natural defenses. Nanobotic bioagents, Taman explained, designed specifically to interface with Velkari nervous systems. They are not weapons. Think of them as very advanced translators. The Nexori representative chimed an alarm, its crystalline body flashing with rapid colors. The Vorthok delegation began swirling faster than they had all day. Even the normally calm Thraxian delegate gestured frantically with all four arms. Your ship's nervous systems are incredibly sophisticated, Taman continued. They can process information, make decisions, and communicate with each other. But like all nervous systems, they are designed to respond to certain signals. The display showed the nanobots at work. They attached themselves to nerve endings throughout the bioship, sending carefully crafted electrical pulses that mimicked natural biological signals. The nanobots are telling your ship's nervous systems that they are in immediate danger, Taman explained. Not from an external threat, but from an internal biological crisis. Their instinct is to return home immediately for medical treatment. On the display, the bioships began to move. Their formation started to break apart as individual vessels turned away from Earth and began accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. This is impossible, Queen Zestra repeated, but her voice was weaker now. Our ships are connected to the hive mind. They would never abandon their mission. Your Majesty is correct about the hive mind connection, Taman agreed, which is why this approach will be so effective. The display showed the bioship's communication network, thousands of connections linking ship to ship across the entire fleet. But now those connections were carrying more than tactical information. The nanobots will spread through your entire fleet within minutes, Taman explained. Every ship that receives the biological distress signal will pass it on to every other ship. Your own communication system will ensure that the effect reaches your entire armada. Queen Zestra sank back into her chair, her compound eyes reflecting the chaos on the display. Her perfect fleet, the weapon that had conquered 47 worlds, was falling apart before her eyes. But that is not the most important part, Taman continued, his voice still calm and steady. The nanobots will not just affect the ships currently in our system. The display changed to show the Velkari fleet beginning to jump to faster-than-light travel. As they disappeared from Earth's sensors, new tracking data appeared on the screen. Your bioships will carry the nanobots back to every Velkari world, Taman explained. To your shipyards, your military bases, your home planets. Within days, every bioship in your empire will be infected with the same biological signal. The alien delegates around the table stared at the human boy with growing horror. They were witnessing the systematic dismantling of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. You are not just defeating our fleet, Queen Zestra whispered. You are destroying our entire military capability. No, Your Majesty, Taman replied. We are changing it. The final part of the slide appeared, showing projections of what would happen to the Velkari bioships over the coming weeks. The nanobots would not destroy them or turn them into weapons for humanity. Instead, they would fundamentally alter their behavior patterns. The nanobots will make your bioships incapable of attacking sapient species, Taman explained. They will still be incredibly powerful, incredibly intelligent, and incredibly capable. But they will be unable to harm any thinking being. Queen Zestra's wings folded against her back, and for the first time since the meeting began, she looked defeated. You have not conquered us, she said slowly. You have domesticated us. We have given you a choice, Taman corrected. The same choice that every species deserves. You can continue to explore the galaxy, to build new worlds, to expand your knowledge and culture. But you will do it peacefully, he gestured to the display, which now showed potential futures for the Velkari Empire. Ships that could terraform planets in months. Biotechnology that could cure diseases. Living vessels that could explore the most dangerous regions of space without risking sentient lives. Bioships will become the galaxy's most effective tools for peaceful exploration and colonization, Taman said. You will still be powerful. You will still be feared. But you will be feared for your ability to create, not destroy. The chamber fell silent, except for the sound of Queen Zestra's breathing, which came in short, Sharp gasps through her translator. Admiral Hoyan Wu looked at his young assistant with amazement. In less than an hour, Taman had accomplished something that should have been impossible. He defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy without firing a single shot. The age of Valkyrie conquest is over, Taman announced to the chamber. The age of Valkyrie exploration begins now. Queen Zestra rose from her chair with the slow, careful movements of someone who had just realized they were standing on the edge of a cliff. Her 8-foot frame towered over the council table, but for the first time since entering the chamber, she did not look intimidating. She looked afraid. "This cannot be happening," she said, her voice carrying a tremor that her translator could not hide. "Our bioships are perfect warriors. They have never been defeated. They cannot be controlled by alien technology." "Your Majesty," Taman replied with respectful patience, "they are not being controlled. They are being convinced." The display above the table shifted to show detailed biological scans of the Valkyrie fleet. Ship after ship showed the same pattern. The nanobots had spread through their nervous systems like a gentle tide, carrying their message of urgent biological crisis. To every part of each vessel, "Your bioships believe they are sick," Taman explained. "Their own instincts are telling them to return home for treatment. No external force is controlling them. They're making the decision to leave based on their own biological programming." Nexari representative began chiming in rapid, high-pitched tones that indicated extreme distress. The crystalline being had spent centuries studying military tactics, and this was unlike anything in their databases. "How long have you been planning this?" Queen Zestra demanded, her compound eyes fixed on Taman with laser focus. "How long have you known about our weaknesses?" "We learned about your weaknesses 3 days ago," Taman answered honestly. "When your fleet first arrived in our system, we began studying the biological signatures of your ships. It took us 72 hours to design and deploy the nanobots." Hyanwu felt his heart skip a beat. 72 hours. The human military had developed and implemented a galaxy-changing weapon in less than 3 days. Even he had not known what Taman was working on. "Impossible," the Thraxian delegate protested, all 4 arms gesturing wildly. "Such technology would take years to develop, decades to test, centuries to perfect." "Under normal circumstances, yes," Taman agreed. "But humans do not work under normal circumstances when their survival is threatened." The display changed to show the human research and development process. Unlike other species, who followed careful, methodical procedures, the humans had worked with desperate efficiency. Teams of scientists had labored around the clock, testing thousands of different approaches simultaneously. "When humans face extinction," Taman explained, "we do not worry about safety protocols or long-term testing. We worry about what works right now." The images showed human laboratories where researchers had worked without sleep for 3 days straight. Computer models running billions of simulations in parallel. Manufacturing facilities that had been converted to produce nanobots in quantities that should have been impossible. 43 billion nanobots were produced and deployed in 72 hours, Taman continued. Each one designed to interact with Valkyrie bioship nervous systems in a specific way. Queen Zestra's wings spread wide, a threat display that would have terrified any normal opponent. But Taman stood calmly beneath her shadow, his young face showing no fear. "You speak of your nanobots as if they are a permanent solution," she said, her voice carrying dangerous undertones. "But our bioships will adapt. They always adapt. In time they will develop immunity to your technology." "Your Majesty is absolutely correct," Taman replied, and his agreement seemed to surprise her. "Your bioships will eventually develop immunity to these specific nanobots." The display showed projections of Valkyrie adaptation rates. Within weeks, possibly days, the bioships would begin to develop defenses against the nanobotic agents. However, Taman continued, "That is not a problem for us." The display changed again, showing something that made every alien delegate in the chamber gasp in shock. It was a production facility, but not on Earth. The structure was in space, floating in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. "While we have been talking," Taman explained, "automated manufacturing platforms have been producing second-generation nanobots. These are designed to counter the adaptations your bioships will develop. The facility was massive, stretching 4 kilometers in every direction. Robotic systems worked continuously, harvesting materials from asteroids and converting them into microscopic machines. By the time your bioships develop immunity to the first generation of nanobots, Taman said, the second generation will already be deployed. When they adapt to the second generation, the third generation will be ready. Queen Zestra staggered backward, her chair scraping against the floor. The implications of what she was seeing hit her like a physical blow. You have not just defeated our current fleet, she whispered. You have created a system that will defeat every fleet we ever build. We have created a system that will prevent you from ever using your fleets for conquest again, Taman corrected. Your bioships will remain powerful, intelligent, and capable, but they will be unable to harm sapient species. The display showed the manufacturing facility in more detail. It was not just producing nanobots. It was also analyzing every piece of data that came back from the infected bioships, learning more about Velkari biology with each passing hour. The facility is designed to learn and adapt just as quickly as your bioships do, Taman explained. It will always be one step ahead of any immunity they develop. Oh. The Vorthok delegation had stopped their constant swirling motion entirely. Their gaseous forms hung motionless in their environmental suits, as if they had forgotten how to move. This is not warfare, one of them managed to say through their translator. This is systematic, biological manipulation. Yes, Taman agreed simply. It is. Queen Zestra's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound like hail hitting a metal roof. Her species had evolved as apex predators, creatures that hunted by understanding their prey's behavior. But she could not understand this. Why? She demanded. Why did you not simply build bigger weapons? Why did you not try to match our firepower? Why did you choose this path? Because bigger weapons would not have worked, Taman replied. Bioships would have adapted to any conventional attack. But they cannot adapt to this because this uses their own biology against them. He gestured to the display, which now showed comparative data from all 47 worlds that had fallen to the Velkari. Every species you conquered tried to fight you on your terms, Taman explained. They tried to build better ships, stronger weapons, more advanced shields. They played the game according to the rules you established. The data showed the pattern clearly. Each species had focused on military technology, trying to create something that could match Velkari bioships in direct combat, but humans do not. Accept other people's rules when our survival is at stake, Taman continued. We changed the game entirely. Queen Zestra's compound eyes reflected the holographic display, showing dozens of tiny images of the automated manufacturing facility. In each reflection, robotic systems continued their work, producing endless streams of nanobots designed to keep her species peaceful forever. You have not conquered us, she said slowly. You have made us irrelevant. We have made your military irrelevant, Taman corrected. Your species still has incredible potential. Your biotechnology could revolutionize medicine, agriculture, and space exploration. Your collective intelligence could solve problems that no single species could handle alone. The display changed to show potential applications for Velkari. Technology. Nice. Bioships that could terraform dead worlds into garden paradises. Structures that could provide perfect environments for any species. Biological computers that could process information faster than any machine. You could become the galaxy's greatest builders instead of its greatest destroyers, Taman said. You could create wonders instead of ruins. But Queen Zestra was not looking at the possibilities on the display. She was staring at the young human who had just dismantled her empire with nothing more than microscopic machines and creative thinking. How old are you, child? She asked quietly. 19 standard years, Your Majesty. 19 years, she repeated, her voice barely audible. Through the translator, a child of 19 years has accomplished what our greatest military minds said was impossible. She turned to look at the other alien delegates around the table, representatives of species that had all chosen submission over extinction when faced with Velkari power. Do you understand what this means? She asked them. This human child has just proven that everything we thought we knew about warfare was wrong. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of life support systems seemed muted. "Your Majesty," Taman said gently, "would you like to see what we propose happens next?" The final slide appeared above the council table, and it was unlike anything anyone in the chamber had expected to see. Instead of weapon schematics or battle plans, it showed a document written in the flowing script of formal galactic law. The header read, "Treaty of Mutual Cooperation between the Human Federation and the Velkhari Empire." Queen Zestra's compound eyes fixed on the document, scanning its contents with the speed that only her species could achieve. As she read, her posture began to change. The aggressive stance of a threatened predator gradually gave way to something that looked almost like relief. "A treaty?" she said, her voice carrying a note of disbelief. "After everything you have done, you offer us a treaty?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Taman replied. "Humanity does not seek the destruction of the Velkhari Empire. We seek its transformation." Document rotated slowly in the holographic display, allowing everyone in the chamber to read its contents. The terms were unlike anything that had ever been negotiated in galactic history. Article 1, Taman read aloud, establishes permanent peace between our species. No Velkhari bioship will ever again be used for military conquest. No human weapon will ever be used against Velkhari civilians. Article 2, Taman continued, establishes joint exploration programs. Velkhari bioships, with their self-repair capabilities and biological adaptation, will be perfect for exploring dangerous regions of space. Human scientific curiosity and creative problem-solving will complement Velkhari biological expertise. The display showed images of what such cooperation might look like. Holes, neutron stars, and other cosmic phenomena too dangerous for normal vessels. Article 3 establishes technology sharing agreements. Taman read, "Humanity will share our knowledge of nanobotic systems, quantum mechanics, and adaptive manufacturing. The Velkhari will share their expertise in biological engineering, organic computing, and living architecture." Queen Zestra's wings rustled as she considered the implications. Her species had always been conquerors, taking what they needed from defeated enemies. The concept of willing cooperation was foreign to them. Article 4, Taman continued, establishes cultural exchange programs. Young Velkhari will study at human universities. Young humans will learn biological sciences from Velkhari masters. The Nexari representative chimed softly, a sound that indicated thoughtful consideration. The crystalline being had been silent since the revelation of the nanobots, but now it seemed to be processing new possibilities. "This is unprecedented," the Nexari said, its voice ringing like crystal bells. "In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever offered partnership to a defeated enemy." "The Velkhari are not defeated," Taman replied firmly. "They are redirected." He gestured to the display, which now showed projections of Velkhari bioships working alongside human vessels. Instead of conquest fleets, they formed exploration armadas. Instead of weapons of war, they carried instruments of discovery. They will discover new worlds, new species, new phenomena. Your names will be remembered not as conquerors, but as the greatest explorers in galactic history. The Thraxian delegate raised one of his four hands. "What happens to the species? They have enslaved?" Article 5, Taman read, establishes rehabilitation programs for all worlds under Velkhari control. Enslaved species will be given the choice of independence or continued association with the Velkhari Empire under new voluntary terms. Queen Zestra's compound eyes widened. She had not expected the humans to address the fate of her existing subjects. Article 6 establishes reparations programs, Taman continued. The Velkhari Empire will use its biological expertise to help repair damage caused by past conquests. Destroyed ecosystems will be restored. Extinct species will be brought back using genetic reconstruction techniques. They were proposing to undo it entirely. "This is impossible," Queen Zestra protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "The resources required would be enormous. The time needed would be centuries. The Velkhari Empire has had centuries to perfect conquest," Taman replied. Doubt. Now you. We'll have centuries to perfect restoration. The display changed to show detailed projections of what galactic civilization could become. Former Valkyrie conquest fleets working to terraform dead worlds. Bioships carrying supplies and expertise. 2 struggling colonies. The galaxy's most feared military force transformed into its greatest humanitarian organization. Your Majesty, Taman said, stepping closer to the towering alien queen, you have a choice to make. Countermeasures to our nanobots. You can spend the next 1,000 years in an endless technological arms race that you cannot win. He paused, letting his words sink in. Or you can sign this treaty and become something greater than a conqueror. Queen Zestra looked around the chamber at the other alien delegates, species that had once cowered before. Her power now watched with fascination as she considered the human proposal. You offer us partnership, she said slowly. But how do we know you will not betray us once we have agreed to your terms? How do we know this is not simply a more elaborate form of conquest? Because Taman replied, humans understand something that your species has forgotten. Willing allies are always stronger than conquered enemies. The display showed historical examples from human civilization. Nations that had been enemies for centuries becoming close partners when they found common cause. Species that had fought bitter wars working together to face greater threats. Besides, Taman added with a slight smile, you have seen what humans can accomplish when we are threatened. Queen Zestra stood in silence for several long minutes, her compound eyes reflecting the treaty document that still hung in the air above the table. Around her, the other delegates waited with barely contained breath. Finally, she spoke. I have conquered 47 worlds, she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. I have commanded the most powerful military force in galactic history. I have been feared and obeyed across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. She paused, her wings folding against her back. But I have never been offered respect. The queen moved slowly to the center of the chamber, where Taman stood waiting. Despite the enormous difference in their sizes, there was something equal about the way they faced each other. Human child, she said formally. I, Queen Zestra, of the Valkyrie Empire, accept your proposal for partnership. She extended one of her razor-sharp limbs toward Taman. The young human reached out without hesitation and grasped it in both hands, sealing the agreement that would reshape galactic civilization. I hereby request formal negotiations for a treaty of peace and cooperation between our species, Queen Zestra announced to the chamber. The alien delegates erupted in sounds of amazement and approval. The Nexari chimed in complex harmonies. Vorthok delegations swirled in patterns of celebration. Even the normally reserved Thraxian clapped all 4 hands in appreciation. Admiral Hua Hanwu watched the scene with tears in his eyes. His young protege had accomplished something that military strategists had considered impossible. Not just victory, but peace. Friendship. Queen Zestra's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Indeed, young human, indeed. As the formal treaty negotiations began over the following days, news of the agreement spread throughout the galaxy. The Valkyrie Empire, feared for 1,000 years, had been transformed overnight into a force for exploration and discovery. Tae-Min, the 19-year-old boy who had been dismissed as irrelevant, became the youngest supreme strategic advisor in galactic history. His name would be remembered not as a great warrior, but as the human who proved that the greatest victories come not from destroying enemies, their own policies of conquest. If the mighty Valkyrie could be defeated by creativity rather than force, what did that mean for the future of warfare itself? The age of galactic conquest was ending. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and it had all started with a boy who refused to accept that any problem was impossible to solve.